Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get into it. My father's name flashes on my phone screen for the 5th time in an hour. I watch it vibrate across the glass surface of my desk, the high-gloss minimalism of my Chicago apartment a stark contrast to the worn oak table where I once did math homework under flickering lights. I don't answer. I haven't answered the last 4 times either. Outside, the city stretches in shining angles and glass towers. 5 stories up and 800 miles from the place I once called home, I hover my finger over the ignore button again, pulse steady, heart strangely calm. The call dies. 3 seconds later, an email notification appears. Subject: Your sister needs you, last chance. The sender, Lawrence Reynolds. My stomach tightens even before I open it. I already know the tone. My father has always been a master of ultimatum disguised as concern. The body of the message blurs in my vision, except for the final line, which glows like a branding iron. Chloe's wedding is the most important event of her life. Be there, or forget about any future support. I laugh. Bitter. Dry. I've never needed their support less than I do now. A voicemail pops up, and I press play on speaker. Made in. It's your father. His voice slices through the silence, clipped and commanding as ever. I don't know what game you're playing, but this has gone on long enough. Your sister's wedding is in 2 weeks, and the festivities begin this weekend. If you can't set aside whatever grievance you're harboring for Chloe's special time, then you can forget about any future support from this family. Your mother is beside herself with worry. Call me back. Immediately. The message ends. The silence afterward is heavy and deliberate, like a pause in a courtroom drama just before the verdict drops. I cross the room and open my closet, pushing aside a row of designer coats until my fingers find the hidden frame wedged behind them. I pull it out. My diploma. University of Chicago. Bachelor of Science in Data Science. Summa cum laude. 3 years gathering dust in the shadows because old habits die hard, and I'd learned early not to make my achievements too visible. They were never the ones celebrated anyway. My phone buzzes again. This time, a text from my mother. Please call. Your father is getting impatient. I glance over at my desk, where the calendar mocks me with bright red marker. Chloe's 2-week wedding extravaganza. 14 days of ceremonies, brunches, and photo shoots for the family's golden child. I open my banking app. $138,139.47 in savings. More than enough to never need anything from them again. They just don't know it yet. A memory hits like an elbow to the ribs. 3rd grade, clutching my report card, 5 perfect A's. My mother glanced up from her magazine, barely registering it. That's nice, honey. That same night, the living room erupted in cheers when Chloe got a participation ribbon in the school play. Did you see how she projected her voice? My father beamed like she'd won an Oscar. I sat silent on the stairs, already learning my place in the hierarchy of attention. Sophomore year, I won 1st place at the regional science fair, blue ribbon, certificate, even a brief interview in the local paper. The chairs where my parents should have sat remained empty. They were at Chloe's soccer game. She'd scored 1 goal. They talked about it for weeks. Senior year, the thick envelope from the University of Chicago trembled in my hands. Full scholarship. I was giddy ecstatic. I remember my mom's frown. That's far away. Chloe might feel inferior if you go there. She's just going to community college. My father didn't even lower his newspaper. You're staying local. End of story. But I didn't stay. 2 weeks later, I boarded a Greyhound bus with 2 suitcases and a fake trail of community college enrollment paperwork. I left behind a version of myself I swore I'd never return to. Until now. I walk into the bathroom and look at my reflection. No longer the invisible daughter. My hair sleek, my eyes sharp, my shoulders squared. I return to my desk, run my fingers over my name on the diploma one last time, and open my laptop. Click. Airline website. Click. First class ticket to Austin. Click. Time they finally saw me. I pack slowly, methodically. Designer luggage. Power blazers. Black heels that say don't interrupt me. The diploma gets wrapped in a cashmere sweater and nestled between layers of silk. Just in case. I slip into the cab at dawn, sunglasses shielding my eyes even though the sun has barely crested the skyline. The city fades behind me, but I don't look back. The plane lands in humid, too bright Texas air, and the rental car crunches over the familiar gravel of the Rancher family driveway. My childhood home, now wrapped in ivory swags and white roses, looks like a wedding magazine threw up on it. I step out of the car, heels clicking, heart steady. The front door opens before I knock. My mother stands there, Hair blown out to honey blonde perfection, not a strand out of place. Made in. Finally. Her hug is quick, performative, like a photo op handshake. Decided to support your sister, I see. I offer a neutral smile and step inside. The scent of vanilla candles and fresh paint hits like a punch. Every surface has been repurposed into a staging area, place cards, table runners, tiny gold charms. My father appears from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. He doesn't hug me. Just holds out a clipboard. Good. You're here. Programs need folding. Gift bags need assembling. Chloe needs these done by 4. I just walked in the door, Dad. And now you have something useful to do. A voice calls from upstairs. No, I said cascading arrangement, not gathered. This is literally ruining everything. Chloe descends the staircase like a queen in distress, phone still pressed to her ear. She spots me and raises one finger, mouthing wait before turning away again. This is the most important day of my life. She hisses into the phone, then finally turns back. Thank God. The caterer's threatening to quit and Mom is useless with the seating chart. Nice to see you too, Chloe. Oh, Elliot's planning a surprise for the reception. I need someone to make sure it coordinates with the theme. You'll meet him at dinner. He's brilliant. She grins. Crypto millionaire. Of course he is. Dinner is exactly what I expect. Elliot Brady arrives right on time, all tailored suit and shark white teeth. He shakes my hand too hard and calls me the mysterious sister. Talks nonstop about crypto and decentralized wealth. My father is entranced. So which exchanges do you use? I ask during a lull. Elliot's smile freezes for half a second. Oh, you know, mostly private platforms. Exclusive stuff. Through my network. And your company's based, where? We're decentralized. Another smile. Blockchain, right? I catch my father's glare, made in. Not everyone wants to talk business at dinner. That night, as everyone fawns over Chloe's ribbon-wrapped wedding invitations and Elliot's bottle of $1,000 wine, I excuse myself. Head to my father's study under the guise of looking for a missing program draft. Instead, I find a stack of documents dated 3 weeks ago, refinancing paperwork for the house. The mortgage was nearly paid off. Now it's not. In the dining room, I hear my mother's anxious voice. Lawrence, are you sure about this second mortgage? My father's response cuts through her concern like a knife. Elliot has guaranteed a 20% return. Minimum. This is how real wealth is built. I press a hand to my chest. I know this pattern. I've seen it in case studies. I've modeled it in data simulations. It's not investment. It's extraction. I step outside into the heavy evening air and call my mentor in Chicago. I think my sister's fiancé is a con artist, I say. And my family just bet their future on him. And so it begins. My childhood was a long exercise in becoming invisible. Not by choice. Not even by rebellion. Just survival. Chloe, my younger sister by 2 years, was the golden child from the moment she was born. When she took her first steps, they threw a party. When I skipped a grade, they barely acknowledged it. When she broke her arm falling off her bike, she got ice cream, gifts, and visitors. When I came home crying from school after being bullied for winning too many academic awards, my mother just sighed and said, "Don't let it bother you, sweetheart. Not everyone likes a show-off." I learned early on that my victories made them uncomfortable. They liked Chloe's messiness, her drama, her loud laugh, her public meltdowns, her need for constant reassurance. It gave them something to fix. Something to rescue. Me? I fixed myself. I stitched together straight A's and extracurriculars like armor. I found solace in data sets and math problems that had definitive answers. No room for favoritism in numbers. I remember the night I got the acceptance letter from the University of Chicago. Thick envelope, bold print, full scholarship. My hands trembled as I clutched it. My heart soared. Finally, I thought. Finally, they'd see me. But instead, my mother frowned. "That's far," she said. "What about Chloe? She's just going to community college. It'll make her feel bad." My father didn't even glance up. "You're staying local." End of story. And that was it. 4 years of perfect grades, SATs in the 99th percentile, countless competitions, and I was still just the other daughter. The one who didn't need help. The one who could fend for herself. So I did. I forged a community college acceptance letter, enrolled in University of Chicago without telling them, and left in the middle of the night with 2 suitcases and a lie. I spent 4 years hiding behind that lie. I built my own life out of nothing. I lived in a tiny dorm with peeling paint, took out my own loans, worked 3 jobs at one point. I excelled. Quietly. Relentlessly. I graduated at the top of my class and took a job in a competitive tech firm, where I worked my way up to product analyst with a six-figure salary by the time I was 24. But I never told them. It wasn't out of spite. It was out of exhaustion. I didn't have the energy to fight for their attention anymore. It was easier to let them believe what they wanted, that I was nearby, ordinary, just a few miles away, going nowhere special. It made things smoother. It kept Chloe comfortable. And Chloe always had to be comfortable. So I stayed silent. When they posted about her graduation, her internships, her community awards, I stayed silent. When they visited my campus to drop off snacks and packages, I stayed silent, hiding in my actual dorm hundreds of miles away. When Chloe got a boyfriend and they celebrated like she'd won the lottery, I clapped politely over the phone. Until now. Until this wedding. The first night back, I lay awake in the guest room, formerly the laundry room before they converted it for visiting family. The air mattress hissed under me, a soft reminder that I was still temporary here. On the wall were 3 photos of Chloe, her senior portrait, her college acceptance, and a framed print of her engagement shoot with Elliot. I stared at them until my eyes blurred. No one had asked about me. No one had asked what I'd been doing for the past 3 years. No one had asked how I managed to afford a first-class ticket or designer luggage. It was as if they had all agreed, silently, to keep me in the role they remembered, quiet, obedient, useful only when needed. The next morning, I offered to help Chloe finalize the wedding schedule. She was already halfway through a breakdown over candleholder heights. "Do you want symmetrical or staggered?" I asked gently. She glared at me through teary eyes. "Do I look like I care right now? The florist changed the delivery time without telling me. I'm just trying to help." She rolled her eyes. "You always say that. But you show up after years away and think you can just take over." I bit the inside of my cheek. "I'm not taking over. I'm trying to be involved." "You've never been involved, maiden," she snapped. "Not unless it benefits you." I blinked. It wasn't just the accusation that stung. It was how easily it came to her lips, like she'd been saving it. Like she believed it. And then came Elliot. The more time I spent around him, the clearer the picture became. His charm was calculated. His stories, impressive on the surface, always lacked follow-up. He spoke in vague generalities and buzzwords, dropping names and places like breadcrumbs. But when pressed, his answers unraveled. I knew the signs. I'd seen them before. I'd analyzed fraud models for years. This was more than suspicion, it was instinct. So I started digging. Late at night, I trawled through investment forums, cross-referencing social media accounts, public records, and business databases. It didn't take long to find the cracks. Elliot Brady had no verifiable company under his name. No real presence in any crypto firm. But there were whispers. Comments on forums about a man named Edward Lambert. Another Ethan Lewis. Same face. Different names. All involved in exclusive investment opportunities. All gone just days before a wedding. I reached out to victims. One woman responded. Her name was Karen. She lived 3 states away and agreed to meet. She looked older than her photos. Grief does that. Her hands trembled as she slid a folder across the cafe table. "He told me I was special," she whispered. "Made me feel like I mattered." Inside the folder were photos, bank transfers, police reports. He had taken $60,000 and her grandmother's ring. Vanished the night before the wedding. My hands clenched around the folder. Same pattern. Same charm. Same face. Different name. When I got back to the house, the place was in chaos over table linens. I tried to pull my mother aside. "I need to talk to you. Privately." "Later, dear." Chloe's upset. "It's about Elliot." That got her attention. But not in the way I hoped. "Maiden," she said, her voice tight. "If this is about your jealousy." "Jealousy?" I stared at her. "You think I'm jealous of him? You've always been jealous of Chloe. This is her moment. Don't ruin it." The words echoed in my skull like a slap. That evening, I called a meeting in the living room. I laid out the folder. The photos. The names. The reports. They didn't believe me. Not at first. Chloe screamed. My mother cried. My father stood like a statue, jaw clenched. "This is absurd," he said. "You're reaching." "Then explain the second mortgage," I said quietly. "Explain why the house that was nearly paid off is suddenly tied to Elliot's investment fund." They froze. I waited for someone to speak. No one did. I looked at Chloe, whose face had gone pale, her eyes wide with something between fear and fury. "You show up out of nowhere," she said, her voice shaking, "and expect us to believe that you're some kind of savior? I opened my mouth. Don't, she snapped. Don't act like you care. I do care, I said. Which is why I'm telling you this now, before he disappears. Before it's too late. My father stepped forward. That's enough. Leave. I stared at him. You're kicking me out for telling the truth? For causing chaos. For attacking your sister. For undermining this family. My hands trembled, but I didn't flinch. I'm not the one who undermined this family, I said. But he was already turning away. Chloe stood, her engagement ring glittering like a threat. You were always too much. Too cold. Too calculated. And I realized, with a hollow ache, that the truth didn't matter to them. Not if it came from me. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the illusion. So I left. I packed my things. I left the folder behind. And as I drove away, I whispered to the night air. When he disappears, remember that I tried to stop it. The phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 17 missed calls. 23 texts. 5 voicemails. All in the span of a single morning. I flipped the phone over, screen down, and poured myself a second cup of coffee. The sun spilled through the windows of my Chicago apartment, lighting the hardwood floors in ribbons of warmth. If I closed my eyes, I could almost pretend this was just another Sunday, quiet, intentional, mine. But the vibrations wouldn't stop, each one a tremor of the fallout unfolding 800 miles away. The first voicemail began with silence, then, a sound I'd never heard in my life, my father's voice cracking. Made in, he's gone. There was no command in his tone this time. No authority. Just something hollow. Call us back. The second voicemail was my mother, her voice smaller than I ever remembered. The accounts are empty, even my retirement fund. The police, they said it's a civil matter. We can't, please, Maiden, please come home. We don't know what to do. The third was Chloe. You were right, she whispered, and those 3 words struck harder than any accusation ever had. I didn't listen. Please, help us. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I simply placed the phone on the counter and took another slow sip of coffee, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue like resolve. Then I opened my laptop. There was work to do. The flight I booked wasn't first class this time. It wasn't about statements anymore. It was about clarity. Precision. Purpose. I packed light, 3 days' worth of clothes, my laptop, a folder of legal documents, and a copy of my financial portfolio. The packing didn't take long. I was good at traveling light. I had been doing it metaphorically my entire life. When the cab pulled up to the house, the transformation was startling. The wedding tent in the backyard had been partially dismantled, its skeletal frame leaning like a ghost of a celebration that never happened. White chairs were stacked in silence against the fence. Ivory roses, once fresh and opulent, now wilted in the sun. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Her face, bare of makeup, was drawn and sallow, like she'd aged 5 years in 2 days. You came, she said, as if she wasn't sure I would. I stepped inside without responding. My father was pacing in the living room, phone in hand. He hung up the moment he saw me. His eyes went to the designer watch on my wrist, then the handbag in my hand, a flicker of calculation running across his features. We thought, he began, voice uncertain. Perhaps you might be able to help, financially, until we sort this out. My mother wrung her hands. The country club board, they're asking questions. Your father is treasurer. And the Hendersons, what will they think? Chloe sat on the couch, wearing one of my old high school t-shirts. Her hair was undone, her face blotchy. She looked like someone who had spent the night crying and the morning trying to pretend she hadn't. She didn't speak at first. Just stared at me with swollen eyes. Then, finally, if you had been more supportive from the beginning, she said, her voice brittle, I might have listened. The blame slipped out of her like breath, automatic, practiced. I set my bag down on the coffee table and took off my coat. The living room was smaller than I remembered. Claustrophobic. Still lined with framed photos of Chloe's dance trophies, cheer team, her first job. Not a single photo of my science fair wins. Not one of my graduation. The house was a shrine to the child they wanted. I didn't raise my voice. I can help, I said. With some things. Not all. My father straightened, already ready to negotiate. Made in as your father. I can help you file police reports properly. I interrupted. I know a colleague who specializes in financial fraud recovery. I can connect you with a lawyer who handles these cases. I will help with the paperwork. With the process. But I will not replace the money you lost. The words landed like stone. I make a good income. I continued. I have substantial savings. But I will not sacrifice my financial security to bail out people who dismissed me, ignored me, and only came looking for me when things fell apart. My father's face reddened. This family has supported you your entire life. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. You put a roof over my head. You fed me. That's the legal minimum, Dad. That's not support. Support is showing up to award ceremonies. Support is reading the scholarship letter your daughter cried over. Support is not shaming her into staying close so your golden child doesn't feel small. Chloe flinched, but said nothing. I turned to her. You ask what matters to me? Being respected. Being seen. You never wanted me. You need me now, but you've never valued me. There's a difference. My mother looked ready to cry again. How can you be so cold? I learned from experts. Silence fell. I stayed standing, my presence taking up space in a house that had tried to shrink me for years. These are my terms, I said. I will help you navigate this legally. I will stay for 3 days. I will not give you direct access to any funds. I will not co-sign loans. Those are my boundaries. My father began pacing again, jaw set. As head of this family, I've always... You're not the head of anything right now, I said flatly. You gave our family's financial future to a conman. That's not leadership. That's negligence. We're family, my mother whispered. Blood is thicker than water. I looked around the room, the walls that had held Chloe's every triumph, the eyes that only ever turned toward me when something went wrong. You think I believe that now? Chloe spoke next, her voice cracking. You've always thought you were better than us. With your job and your degrees and your big city life. I checked my watch. They'd been at this for 27 minutes, rehearsed lines of guilt, blame, and pressure. But I wasn't the girl they remembered. I wasn't that scared child anymore. When I was 8, I said slowly, I won the district spelling bee. You said you couldn't come because Dad had a meeting. I saw you both at Friendly's afterward, celebrating Chloe's participation ribbon. Silence. When I was 15, my science project won state recognition. You skipped the ceremony to go to Chloe's choir concert. She sang back up. Tick, tick, tick. The grandfather clock in the corner marked every second of the truth landing. Christmas 2020, I gave you each personalized gifts based on conversations we had that year. You gave me a generic Visa gift card with the wrong name on it. My Aunt Helen entered the room at that moment, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Her voice trembled but held firm. I saw it all, she said. Every recital you skipped. Every moment you dismissed. This child wilted while you fawned over Chloe. My father turned red. This is family business, Helen. I am family, she snapped. And someone needs to acknowledge what happened in this house. I pulled out a stack of documents from my briefcase and placed them on the table. I'll cover the second mortgage. I'll help consolidate the credit card debt. But I won't help your reputation. I won't pretend Chloe wasn't scanned by a man any decent background check would have flagged. And I won't be paraded around at community functions like the dutiful daughter who saved the day. You don't get to dictate terms in my house, my father growled. I do when I'm the only one capable of saving it, I replied. They all stared at me. This stranger in designer clothes. This woman they didn't raise. This version of their daughter they never saw coming. The assistance will be handled legally, I said. Through third-party channels. No funds come directly to you. Think of it as a business transaction, not a family favor. I handed over 3 copies of the agreement drafted by my lawyer. It included clauses protecting me from liability, and, most controversially, a written acknowledgement of emotional neglect and favoritism over the years. My mother gasped. We've never signed something like this. Then don't, I said, picking up my briefcase. And explain to the bank why you can't make next month's payment. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, my father reached for his glasses. His hands trembled as he read. You've become hard, he said. No, I replied. I've become honest. 10 minutes later, all 3 signed. I stepped outside with Aunt Helen. The air was thick with coming rain. Will you be okay? She asked quietly. I looked at the street where I once waited for the school bus, desperate to escape. I already am. A year later, my diploma finally hangs on the wall. Not hidden behind winter coats. Not shoved into a closet or wrapped in protective fabric like a secret I had to keep quiet to survive. It's centered, framed in dark walnut, glass spotless, light catching on the golden boss letters, Made in and Reynolds, Bachelor of Science and Data Science, summa cum laude. I stand in the morning quiet of my new home, a craftsman-style bungalow on the edge of a tree-lined Chicago neighborhood, and watch the sunlight wash over the wooden floorboards. My fingers graze the edge of my desk, solid maple, hand-picked, assembled by craftsmen who knew what it meant to build something that lasts. Nothing about this house is accidental. Every object has purpose. Every room is mine. The city apartment is gone. I sold it 6 months after the wedding fallout. The new house has a yard. A garden. A space I can cultivate. Nothing extravagant, just strong. Rooted. Real. My laptop chimes, drawing me back to the present. A video call. I click accept, and the screen fills with the bright, excited face of Layla, my third mentee in a program I started for first-generation college women in STEM. I got the scholarship. She blurts before I can even say hello, her eyes wide and shimmering. I laugh, warmth unfurling in my chest. You earned it. I used what you said. When they asked why I deserved it, I didn't minimize. I didn't downplay. I told them exactly what I would do with it. I didn't shrink. My throat tightens unexpectedly. Good, I say. That's good. After the call, I step into the backyard. Spring has nudged the world back to life. Green shoots poking through soil I spent the winter amending with patience and sweat. Tomato seedlings. Zucchini. Herbs. A rosebush I nearly gave up on last year sprouts new growth, stronger than ever. Some things grow stronger after being cut back. On the patio table sits a letter from Dr. Chin, my therapist. 1 year of weekly sessions, each documented in her crisp, unflinching handwriting. The letter reads, "Patient demonstrates significant progress in establishing healthy boundaries and recognizing her inherent value independent of external validation." I read it sometimes. Not because I doubt it, but because it still surprises me. Wednesday afternoons belong to the community center now. I teach financial literacy classes there, mostly young women navigating the sharp edges of adulthood. Last week, Tanya, a whip-smart 17-year-old with fire in her eyes, told me she recognized the signs of a pyramid scheme targeting her mother. I showed her the numbers, Tanya said proudly. They didn't add up. I stopped it before it got bad. I saw it in her posture, the way she straightened her back, the same way I once did in a living room full of people who didn't want to hear the truth. That's what this is about. Not revenge. Not even redemption. Visibility. Being seen. Helping others see themselves. A notification pops up on my phone. A monthly update from Aunt Helen. Your father and mother are still struggling to refinance. Chloe's working part-time at the bank now. Therapy twice a month. No contact from them since you left, but they're quieter now. I set the phone down and breathe. The boundary held. The temptation, in the early days, had been to gloat. To demand they see me now. But it passed. Because something unexpected took its place, peace. Not the absence of pain. Just the absence of performance. I no longer have to perform for them. I no longer have to earn what should have been freely given. That evening, the community center buzzes with applause as I walk to the podium. The mentorship program has just been recognized for its impact on first-gen students across the city. I hold the award in my hands, glass and metal, solid and real. In the crowd, I see Dr. Chin nodding. Aunt Helen beaming. Mrs. Grayson, my neighbor, who shares tomato seedlings every spring. My coworkers, who respect my mind for its sharpness, not its ability to make others feel comfortable. No empty chairs this time. No one missing. When I started this program, I tell the audience, I thought I was helping others find what I never had. But what I discovered instead is that worth doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. Back home, I opened my laptop to finalize the application portal for the Reynolds Visibility Scholarship, named not out of bitterness, but transformation. It's for students whose academic accomplishments were overlooked due to family dynamics or emotional neglect. The essay question reads, describe a time your contributions went unrecognized. How did you maintain your sense of value? A message pings from Sasha, my first mentee. You saw me when no one else did. That changed everything. Outside, twilight stretches across the garden. The plants stand straight, leaves open to the cooling air. I water each one slowly, deliberately. My hands know this rhythm now, the patience of growth, the resilience of roots. I kneel beside the rosebush I once thought wouldn't survive. Its leaves are glossy, its new buds fat with promise. Some things grow back stronger. Some things are never invisible again. I lean back on my heels, dirt under my nails, and smile, not for anyone watching. Just for me. Because now I am completely, undeniably, permanently visible. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen not in moments of glory, but in silence. In the spaces where no one claps, where no one looks, where the only witness to your strength is yourself. This story, of a daughter dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated, teaches us more than just resilience. It reveals how dignity, boundaries, and the quiet assertion of truth can rewrite the narrative we were handed. Maiden's journey is not just about family betrayal or financial deception. It's about the invisible scaffolding we build inside ourselves when no one else offers support. It's about the pain of not being seen, and the greater strength required to choose visibility on our own terms. Through her experiences, we find lessons on self-worth, boundaries, identity, and the kind of love that matters most, the kind we give ourselves. First and foremost, her story teaches us that recognition does not define value. For much of her life, Maiden's achievements were ignored. She received no applause, no celebration, and certainly no parental pride. Yet, she didn't stop achieving. She learned to succeed quietly, not because she craved solitude, but because she had to choose between going unnoticed or not going at all. And this speaks to so many people raised in households where attention is transactional, given only when you serve someone else's needs. The lesson here is clear: your worth is not diminished by someone else's inability to see it. The absence of recognition does not equate to failure. In fact, some of the strongest people are those who thrived in the shadows. They built discipline, integrity, and depth not because the world rewarded them, but because they refused to be defined by it. Another powerful takeaway is the importance of boundaries, especially with family. There's a toxic cultural narrative that blood must always come before all else. That no matter how you're treated, you must return. Forgive. Sacrifice. But Maiden's story disrupts that myth. She shows us that boundaries are not betrayal, they are self-respect made visible. When her family turned to her in crisis, not because they valued her, but because they needed her, she didn't surrender her dignity in exchange for temporary closeness. She helped them, yes, but on her terms. With conditions. With legal safeguards. With truth. That moment, when she stood in their living room and laid out her requirements, wasn't about vengeance. It was about reclamation. She redefined the power dynamic. She stopped begging to be seen, and instead, required it. This is a lesson so many people, especially women, need to hear. That helping doesn't mean erasing yourself. Compassion can coexist with boundaries. Generosity is not the same as self-erasure. We can love people and still demand accountability. We can offer support without losing ourselves in the process. Her story also teaches us that healing doesn't always mean reunion. Not every rift must be mended. Not every relationship deserves revival. Sometimes, the healthiest choice is to walk away, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Maiden doesn't end her story sitting down to dinner with her parents. She doesn't host Sunday brunches or rekindle sisterly closeness. Instead, she builds a new life, one rooted in truth, mentorship, community. She chooses to cultivate growth in places that nourish her, not drain her. This challenges a deeply ingrained societal script, the one that tells us resolution means togetherness. That reconciliation is the ultimate proof of maturity. But sometimes, closure isn't about going back, it's about going forward without needing to return. Maiden's growth comes not from being accepted by her family, but from realizing she doesn't need their acceptance to validate her own. There's also a profound lesson in her use of success, not as revenge, but as restoration. When people hurt us, it's tempting to want to prove ourselves in loud, visible ways. To flaunt, to gloat, to seek validation through triumph. But Maiden's success isn't loud. It's not weaponized. It's functional. It's for her. She uses her intelligence to build, to help, to mentor, to give back. Her greatest revenge is not her job title or her bank account. It's that she became someone who sees others when no one saw her. This teaches us that true success is not a performance, it's a state of alignment. It's when our values, skills, and actions all serve a purpose larger than our pain. It's when we rise not just to prove someone wrong, but to prove ourselves right. Through her mentorship program, her financial literacy work, and the scholarships she launches, we see another key lesson. When you heal, you create space for others to rise. Maiden doesn't just escape a toxic dynamic, she builds something new. Something inclusive. Something rooted in empathy. That's what healing looks like when it's complete, not just internal peace, but external impact. And perhaps one of the most subtle but powerful lessons is this: you don't have to be loud to be unshakable. Maiden is not dramatic. She doesn't scream. She doesn't burn bridges for attention. Her strength is precise, calculated, intentional. And that's a radical form of power, especially for women, especially in families where silence has been forced upon them. She reclaims silence, not as suppression, but as choice. In a world that often equates strength with noise, Maiden reminds us that calm is power. Stillness is strength. Softness is not weakness, it is steel and velvet. Even her act of returning to help her family, under strict legal terms, shows the highest form of growth. I will not let what you did to me define what I do with you now. That's not forgiveness in the traditional sense. It's higher. It's freedom. It's the ability to choose action without being enslaved by the past. So what do we learn from Maiden? We learn that the people who don't clap for you might never change, But that doesn't mean you stop dancing. We learn that leaving a toxic family system is not betrayal. It is rebirth. We learn that you can be the one they forgot, the one they ignored, the one they needed only in crisis, and still be the one who rises. We learn that invisibility is not a life sentence. It's a temporary state. And when we choose to step into the light, on our own terms, we become undeniable. Her life, in the end, is a garden. She tends it with care. She waters what grows. She prunes what's dying. And she lets go of what never bloomed. Not everything needs to be saved. Not every root deserves to stay in the soil. But the ones that do, they thrive. Maiden teaches us that healing is not a straight line. It's a spiral. A garden. A process. And sometimes, the most beautiful things grow in the soil left behind by what once tried to bury us.